Hello again, it's Reverend Chris Taylor here, and today it's part 2 of Chapter 9 of Winnie the Pooh by A A Milne, illustrated fabulously by E.H. Shepherd. And the name of the chapter was, if you remember, in which Piglet is entirely surrounded by water. And at the end of yesterday's part 1, we'd found that Christopher Robin, indeed, was for the first time in his life living on a real island, which was really exciting. There he is. If you remember, he was walking from his house to put a stick in at the edge of the water, and every day when he came out, the water had risen up and up, so that the stick that he'd put in the previous day was covered. So that was just showing you how quickly the flooding had happened. And can you see all those raindrops coming down in the picture? Goodness me. Anyway, there he was on an island for the first time in his life, feeling really excited. And it was on that morning of the 5th day of the rain that Owl came flying over the water to say, "How do you do?" to his friend Christopher Robin. "I say, Owl," said Christopher Robin, "isn't this fun? I'm on an island." "The atmospheric conditions have been very unfavourable lately," said Owl. "The what?" "It has been raining," explained Owl. "Yes," said Christopher Robin, "it has. The flood level has reached an unprecedented height." "The who?" "There's a lot of water about," explained Owl. "Yes," said Christopher Robin, "there is. However, the prospects are rapidly becoming more favourable at any moment." "Have you seen Pooh?" "No, at any moment." "I hope he's all right," said Christopher Robin. "I've been wondering about him. I expect Piglet's with him. Do you think they're all right, Owl?" "I expect so. You see, at any moment." "Do go and see, Owl, because Pooh hasn't got very much brain and he might do something silly, and I do love him so, Owl. Do you see, Owl?" "That's all right," said Owl. "I'll go. Back directly." And he flew off. In a little while he was back again. "Pooh isn't there," he said. "Not there?" "He's been there. He's been sitting on a branch of his tree outside his house with 9 pots of honey. But he isn't there now." "Oh, Pooh!" cried Christopher Robin. "Where are you?" "Here I am," said a growly voice behind him. "Pooh!" And they rushed into each other's arms. "How did you get here, Pooh?" asked Christopher Robin when he was ready to talk again. "On my boat," said Pooh proudly. "I had a very important message sent me in a bottle, and owing to having got some water in my eyes, I couldn't read it, so I brought it to you on my boat." With these proud words, he gave Christopher Robin the message. "But it's from Piglet," cried Christopher Robin when he'd read it. "Isn't there anything about Pooh in it?" asked Bear, looking over his shoulder. Christopher Robin read the message aloud. "Oh, are those peas Piglet's? I thought they were Pooh's. We must rescue him at once. I thought he was with you, Pooh. Owl, could you rescue him on your back?" "I don't think so," said Owl after grave thought. "It is doubtful if the necessary dorsal muscle—" "Then would you fly to him at once and say that rescue is coming, and Pooh and I will think of a rescue and come as quick as ever we can." "Oh, don't talk, Owl. Go on quick." And still thinking of something to say, Owl flew off. "Now then, Pooh," said Christopher Robin, "where's your boat?" "I ought to say," explained Pooh as they walked down to the shore of the island, "that it isn't just an ordinary sort of boat. Sometimes—" I'd forgotten this. "Sometimes it's a boat, and sometimes it's more of an accident. It all depends." "Depends on what?" "On whether I'm on the top of it or underneath it." "Oh, well, where is it?" "There," said Pooh, pointing proudly to the floating bear. It wasn't what Christopher Robin expected, and the more he looked at it, the more he thought what a brave and clever bear Pooh was. And the more Christopher Robin thought this, the more Pooh looked modestly down his nose and tried to pretend he wasn't. think that's a picture that Christopher Robin had in his mind of Pooh being brave on the floating bear. But it's too small for the two of us, said Christopher Robin sadly. 3 of us with Piglet. That makes it smaller still. Oh, Pooh Bear, what shall we do? And then this bear, Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh, FOP, friend of Piglets, RC, Rabbit's companion, PD, Pole discoverer, EC and TF, Eeyore's comforter and tail finder. In fact, Pooh himself said something so clever that Christopher Robin could only look at him with mouth open and eyes staring, wondering if this was really the bear of very little brain whom he had known and loved so long. We might go in your umbrella, said Pooh. We might go in your umbrella, said Pooh. We might go in your umbrella, said Pooh. For suddenly Christopher Robin saw that they might. He opened his umbrella and put it point downwards in the water. It floated but wobbled. Pooh got in. There's the umbrella, Christopher Robin standing by, Pooh getting in. He was just beginning to say that it was all right now when he found that it wasn't. So after a short drink, which he didn't really want, he waded back to Christopher Robin. Then they both got in together and it wobbled no longer. I shall call this boat the Brain of Pooh, said Christopher Robin. And the Brain of Pooh set sail forthwith in a southwesterly direction, revolving gracefully. There's a very frightened Piglet with an owl on a branch nearby, waving a red something. Let's see what it is. You can imagine Piglet's joy when at last the ship came in sight of him. In after years, he liked to think that he had been in very great danger during the terrible flood. But the only danger he had really been in was the last half hour of his imprisonment, when Owl, who had just flown up, sat on a branch of his tree to comfort him and told him a very long story about an aunt who had once laid a seagull's egg by mistake. And the story went on and on, rather like this sentence, until Piglet, who was listening out of his window without much hope, went to sleep quietly and naturally, slipping out slowly from the window towards the water until he was only hanging on by his toes, at which moment, luckily, a sudden loud squawk from Owl, which was really part of the story, being what his aunt said, woke the Piglet up and just gave him time to jerk himself back into safety and say, "How interesting," and "Did she?" when, well, you can imagine his joy when at last he saw the good ship, Brain of Pooh, Captain C. Robin, First Mate P. Bear, coming over the sea to rescue him. There they are, waving and paddling in the rain. And as that is really the end of the story, and I'm very tired after that last sentence, I think I shall stop there.